Hello everybody and welcome back to ZakIsCinema. Yes, welcome home everybody. Today we are going to be doing a spoiler review and discussion for the brand new movie 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Now this is going to be more of a spoiler discussion on the movie, not a scene by scene kind of breakdown on the movie. It's more of a way to kind of build off of my initial feelings and thoughts on the Bone Temple. There were some specific moments and scenes and decisions that I couldn't really get too in depth in on my spoiler free review. So if you haven't seen the movie, check out my spoiler free review. If you've seen the movie, welcome to this video, because we're gonna kind of get a little bit more specific than I could in that original video. So let's get into the discussion part. This is going to be a little bit less organized than my traditional reviews where I break it down into positives and negatives. We're just going to go through some certain points together here. So first, I'd kind of like to start off with the character of Spike, and then also the group dynamic and characters with the Jimmies. I really loved how we pick up with Spike literally right after the ending of 28 Years Later. I like that he is shown in this vulnerable state of being captured by the Jimmies, leading by Jimmy Crystal, who is leading that group, and he is basically captured and forced to fight one of Jimmy's fingers, as he refers to them, and fight them to the death. And we're introducing this like abandoned, what looked like to be a community center in an abandoned swimming pool, as Spike is just scared shitless about what is about to go down. And all the other finger characters, I don't know what to call them, the Jimmy groupies, I guess, are kind of antagonizing Spike. It's just a kid, so they're kind of messing around with him instead of just killing him and getting it over with. So I think it kind of helped to reinforce the sympathy I was feeling for Spike at the end of the first installment, but now he's already endured so much throughout the first movie and now the beginning of this one that I really just felt for Spike, and I like that he fights back. He kind of messes with these Jimmy groupies right back by pantsing the one that is supposed to kill him and then stabs him in the leg, puncturing an artery and actually killing one of Jimmy's fingers, and then from there becomes part of the group. So I really like that introduction here. It gives more to the Jimmy characters and also puts Spike in another vulnerable position that just really made me feel for this kid so much. And I like the close-up panicked looking shot that we get of Spike after he realizes what he had just done with killing his first human. And I think this is where I was excited to see Spike's journey, but then unfortunately was let down with how little they really do with the character of Spike, especially after such a big character defining moment. I wanted to sit in that moment just a little bit longer. Like, Spike has killed zombie characters before, but this is his first human that he was put into a position that he had to kill and get rid of. But I felt like they never really explored that. It should have been more of a big turning point for the character of Spike, but I feel like the movie kind of acknowledges it but never really does a whole lot with it. And I feel like it was a missed opportunity because they introduce one of the Jimmy groupie characters, whose name is Kelly, that we find out at the end of the movie, who kind of takes a sympathy or liking to the character of Spike. I mean, she's still part of the Jimmy's group, but she notices that Spike is just a kid and kind of has many opportunities throughout to kind of look out for him. And that was a very interesting dynamic, and I thought, Spike might open up a little bit more to Kelly, and Kelly would be kind of there to support him, and they'd kind of work together a little bit, and they eventually do, but I really felt like I was missing a lot of that dynamic here. I wish we could have had more scenes of them together talking, maybe plotting, or Spike opening up to her, or Kelly opening up to Spike a little bit more, and kind of creating a plan together. Like Kelly kind of goes off from the group and encourages Jimmy Crystal to talk to the devil, which is Dr. Kelson's character, which we'll get into all of that. But I kind of wish instead of that, maybe her and Spike kind of came up with this plan together, or tiny little things like that that would show the dynamic a little bit more. I think if they focused on that dynamic and focused on the character of Spike, I think it would have added more to the Jimmy characters with Kelly. It would have given Spike more of this emotional connection inside this cult, and then made Spike's actions, which we'll get into later on in the film, I think hit a little bit harder and put him on another journey like we saw in the first movie. So I like the character of Spike, just unfortunately he feels like he is the same character that he started as at the beginning of this movie to the end of the movie. So I hope the third one kind of fixes some of that, puts him on a bigger journey. So that was kind of a mixed element for me, but I at least appreciated how it started and where we see Spike at the beginning of this movie. Next, I kind of wanted to talk about Dr. Kelson and Samson, or the alpha zombie, who is this beautiful, heartfelt dynamic sprinkled all throughout the movie. In the first installment, we really just see Dr. Kelson from like an outside perspective. We see it from Spike's father and from Spike and his mother. So I really loved how we get to see a majority of this movie through Dr. Kelson's eyes and not just Spike's eyes. We get to see his kind of quiet, obsessive routine that feels believable and grounded, and what a passionate doctor might actually be doing left out on his own in a zombie apocalypse. I like how it is explored with Dr. Kelson, showing his fondness for the alpha zombie is going beyond curiosity and is almost this like personal passion project he's invested in. Most of the time we get with Samson and Dr. Kelson is kind of sedating him with these morphine darts and studying him, spending time with him, listening and singing music to him. He's not trying to control this infected zombie. He's really trying to observe and understand them, which I thought that was such a unique change of pace in a zombie movie, because usually when you have scientists or doctors, they're really just focusing on a cure. They're always in laboratories and never treat the zombies like humans. Not saying that, I would in that case scenario, but I like seeing this ostracized doctor really still focus on his love for humanity and trying to help anyone and everyone. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is just Dr. Kelson and Samson sitting in a field together, and as Samson is high off of morphine, Dr. Kelson is just kind of talking to him and then licks some of the morphine dart with Samson to kind of sit there and get high with a zombie. And it's just so ridiculous saying out loud. And I think in another movie that didn't maybe understand the characters or the tone, I think it would have been absolutely ridiculous and cheesy. But here it almost comes off as sincere and believable. And I think it really showcases and deepens the Kelson character instead of kind of undermining him or showing him to be stupid in any way. And along with that scene, the moon scene is absolutely beautiful in this movie. We're at a point where Dr. Kelson is almost kind of giving up on his study with the alpha and really just wants Samson to find peace by killing him, kind of similar to what he did with Spike's mother in the first installment. And right before he's about to inject Samson with the poison or whatever he's using, Samson is like looking up at the sky and then audibly says moon. And that moment to me, again, could have came off as so cheesy, but to me, that moment really hit hard. It almost kind of reminded me how I felt when Caesar in Rise of the Planet of the Apes says his first words with no. Like, it instantly reminded me of that scene and had that same kind of like step back emotional kind of response of like, oh shit, this is something we really haven't seen before in the genre, or at least not done in a way that I thought was cheesy whatsoever. I just thought it was some of the most thoughtful zombie characterization I've ever seen in the genre, and really gives you a unique character with Dr. Kelson that is trying to do something different that you've never really seen before. And I just appreciate so much how those scenes came off as serious, and I was like invested in this friendship relationship between a doctor and a zombie. Next, I kind of wanted to touch on how well the movie fixed the characters of the Jimmies after the weird, wild, unnecessary tonal shift the first one went with. I felt like that was one of the most divisive elements and just such a weird note to really leave off on. And in this movie, I think they finally get the tone right. These are over-the-top crazy characters that they don't shy away from that element, but they're not afraid to show their serious, sadistic side that is really infected this group overall. One of my favorite scenes with the Jimmy characters is when they infiltrate that random family's home. They end up eating at the dinner table and then just tying the family up and tying them up in the barn. And then we jump to a scene later on at night when they're all tied up in the barn, about ready to be tortured, tied up similar to that guy in the first installment that Spike had to put down. And the main Jimmy Crystal character is just going on about preaching and discussing Satan and how he is Satan's favorite son, and talking about how he's going to be skinning them alive. It is horrifying, effective, never loses that unique, fun, over-the-top tone with these Jimmy characters, but shows how brutal and scary and relentless they can really be. And that scene is incredible too, because it not only shows you how evil Jimmy Crystal is and his fun personality that is so unsettling at the same time, but it kind of adds more to the group dynamic as well, as Jimmy Crystal kind of sets up something similar to what we saw with Spike in the beginning, with giving one of these victims a chance to join his cult if he chooses someone, fights them, and kills them and wins. And we get this cool scene of one of the victims choosing one of the female Jimmy characters in hopes that he can kill her, but gets absolutely dismantled, cut up and everything. But then in the barn, one of the other wife characters that ran away after the dinner scene there with the Jimmy character, she throws this hook down and stabs that female Jimmy character in the back of the head in this amazing kind of unexpected scene that really hit really hard. And that victim guy character that was just about to die grabs like a propane tank and starts putting some of the Jimmy characters on fire and blowing up and burning down this barn. So it was such a cool violent pushback that led to a great scene, and we get to see some of the sadistic Jimmy characters finally meet their maker, and it felt incredibly cathartic in a way. So with scenes like this, how it still shows how over the top they are, but never really pulls back from their cruelty in nature. They felt like genuine psychopaths and not out there comic reliefs, if that makes sense. And I really wish the first movie let off with a scene almost similar to this, or something with kind of capturing Spike, or even maybe if they had captured Spike and then the movie left off in that swimming pool scene right as Spike is about to have to fight one of the Finger characters. Like, I think that would have given the vibe a little bit better and actually made me interested in seeing what was going to happen next. But instead they went with this weird song choice, highly stylized editing that just didn't fit the rest of the movie. So I know I touched on that in my spoiler-free review, but I'm still so confused, especially because they filmed these back to back. I don't know how they didn't understand the tone and should have left off with hinting at their more sadistic side, in my opinion. Next, I kind of wanted to touch on the leader, Jimmy Crystal, and Dr. Kelson's exploration in their relationship and discussion about power, faith, and their egos. I thought this was another great addition, not only with Nelson and Samson, but with the Jimmy characters and Dr. Kelson, which was awesome. I love the first kind of introduction we get with the Kelly Jimmy character saying that she believes Dr. Kelson is Satan because he's painted all up in iodine, looking like he's Satan. And at one point, Kelly sees him dancing with Samson. So they are like convinced that this guy is actually Satan because he's dancing literally with his devil spawns that are the infected humans. So Jimmy Crystal is this character that I think believes in what he is saying, but deep down probably hopes that Satan maybe isn't real, so no one can really challenge his power. But he kind of goes along with it because he doesn't want to lose that group dynamic that he has with the Jimmies. So he ends up spying and then going to talk with Kelson himself. And I love this scene when Jimmy Crystal gets a chance to kind of be vulnerable. He opens up about his father that we saw in the opening scene in the first installment, and you kind of better understand why he's flipped to the complete opposite. Now worships Satan, now values having control and power over people, and why he desperately needs his followers that he has. And this leads to Dr. Kelson almost having this level of sympathy for Jimmy Crystal, not understanding all the bad things that he has done, but he really probably just sees Jimmy Crystal as this lost soul that just kind of needs people and needs some help in this situation. And Dr. Kelson's always willing to help everybody. So I like how it kind of adds more to both sides, and to the point where Jimmy Crystal convinces Dr. Kelson to help convince his finger followers, his groupie followers, to have Dr. Kelson portray himself as Satan to kind of go along with his message here. And the performance scene with Dr. Kelson is absolutely incredible. They show glimpses of it in the trailer, and I was so confused as to why he was dressed like that and acting like that. Like, I thought maybe he got a different version of the infection. It's actually just a musical number performance that is absolutely amazing when he's trying to convince the group that he is Satan and going along with Jimmy Crystal. I love the addition of Dr. Kelson jamming out to some Iron Maiden, blowing cocaine or something into the faces of the fingers, and just creating this theatrical chaos. On paper, I felt like this scene was probably so hard to convince everyone that it was going to work, but somehow it's the movie's maybe best moment or ultimate climax, and I felt like clapping and cheering for Dr. Kelson when he was finished with his performance because of how stunning and beautiful it really was. So I like the tonal shift in this and the tonal balance where they throw in some wild over-the-top elements and some comedy just with the premise of the Jimmy characters and how out there they are compared to the world that they're surrounded in, but never afraid to really go full serious, and I treated everything super serious in the movie. So it was just so impressive how well they balanced all of that. And I love after the performance with Dr. Kelson, he then recognizes Spike is one of the fingers or Jimmy groupies here, and then tries to add another command of convincing the group to sacrifice Jimmy Crystal as like Christ did to his son in the story of the Bible. So I like that kind of switch. It adds more to Dr. Kelson's character of him really looking out for Spike and thinking of a thought out plan right there in the moment. And we get an opportunity where the group contemplates killing Jimmy Crystal right there because they have who they believe as Satan telling them to do so. And we get this super sad scene of Jimmy Crystal just kind of panicking and then stabbing Dr. Kelson to just prove that he isn't actually Satan and that everybody should be bowing down to Jimmy Crystal here. And again, that scene was so emotional too because I really thought Dr. Kelson was going to help Spike in that moment. I mean, he kind of does, but I thought they were going to get out of it together here. And Jimmy stabbing Kelson is so heartbreaking, especially in a moment like that when he's just trying to help somebody and he gets wrapped up into something way bigger than he maybe anticipated. And I like that right after we finally get Spike's big moment of then stabbing and causing Jimmy Crystal to bleed out, and then they eventually go and hang him on the upside down cross that Dr. Kelson put together and just have him hanging there in a reverse crucifixion just like Christ did to his son. And I think this was another mixed element for me, just the character for Spike here. They missed an opportunity where they had Spike just this scared little boy the entire movie, and I felt like the groundwork wasn't there for that moment of him stepping up to hit as hard as it should have been, and why I was hoping there would be more following or development with the character of Spike so that moment would have been bigger. It's a good moment. I just felt like they didn't do a whole lot to set it up or develop Spike a little bit more than we already knew about him. So that was a little frustrating because it's such a great scene that I felt like could have been even better. However, despite that, I absolutely love what happens to Jimmy Crystal here as he is hung upside down in this crucifixion style with blood loss, fear, trauma going all throughout his veins. And then we get to see the alpha zombie at the end of the walkway coming forward to come pick up Dr. Kelson. And Jimmy Crystal is so delirious that he sees that alpha zombie with horns almost looking like it is Satan himself. And the alpha zombie doesn't really even acknowledge him at first. And Jimmy Crystal's just hanging there crying that Satan has forsaken him or forgot him. And I love how Jimmy Crystal is just kind of left there for a second. And then we get this kind of cheap little jump scare of the alpha coming back to attack him. And that was another frustrating element where I feel like Jimmy Crystal got what was coming to him. And it's so satisfying seeing him left off at his most vulnerable, weakest point that we've ever seen this character. It almost reminded me of the villain's fate in the Furiosa movie with Chris Hemsworth's character and what inevitably happens to him. Like, it's so satisfying to see someone so sadistic end up with an outcome they wholeheartedly deserve. But I wish we could see the alpha zombie do one of his spine rips and his head rips. Like, I feel like Jimmy Crystal really deserved that, so I don't know why they didn't show us that or at least do something a little different than that final jump scare. Even though I'm happy he died, I wish I could have saw it is what I'm trying to say here. But lastly, we got to talk about the final scene, which almost is this after credits scene, but more of like a prologue kind of thing. I knew Cillian Murphy was going to show up in this movie right at the beginning when it's all just audio of zombies and people screaming, and then lightly in the background we get to hear Cillian Murphy from the first movie screaming hello when he's walking through London, I believe. And as soon as that happened, I was just waiting the whole movie. I'm like, this guy's gonna show up. I'm so excited. This is like the Spider-Man No Way Home for me. I know it's gonna be here any second, and I love how they saved it for the end because they really wanted to conclude the story that they were doing and then used him as more of a setup, and I think did that absolutely perfectly. We see him obviously 28 years later since the first movie, and we see him studying for a history test with his daughter in what seems to be a very heartfelt connection and dynamic. And I like how in this little scene here, we don't get any confirmation if Selena is alive or if Selena's there. It seems like that is Cillian Murphy's and Selena's daughter, but we don't get any confirmation if she shows up or not. So I hope she's alive because I'd hate to find out in the third one that she was just killed off screen. I mean, I wouldn't be too upset because Cillian's here now, but I don't know. I'm hoping she shows up here, but I love that at the end of this, we get to see Cillian Murphy and his daughter's character go out and see Spike and Kelly running away from a horde of zombies, and them saying, like, of course we got to help them. That's what we do, and go run off to help Spike and Kelly. So I love how it concluded the movie and then gave you a little setup for what should be an amazing third chapter. Overall, for my spoiler-filled thoughts here, I do wish there was maybe a little bit more zombie carnage and action. That's just me, though. I was frustrated that most of the zombie stuff happened to characters that weren't really involved in the story, and it just felt like almost like a mandate. And I think with that, it maybe can feel a little bit like a middle chapter kind of problem, where we're just trying to get characters to where they need to be for the trilogy's ending. But on rewatch, that lack of zombie stuff still overall didn't impact my feelings on it, even though I could see it being a huge negative for some other people. But I really appreciated this even more on my second watch. It feels like such a unique zombie movie that is hard to even categorize as a zombie movie, but I still use that as a positive because I thoroughly enjoyed this the second time, and I still, of course, stick by my rating that I'm looking forward to owning this and watching this on 4K here. But you guys have my spoiler-filled thoughts. Please let me know some of your favorite scenes or moments in the movie. Feel free to comment any of your spoiler-filled thoughts and feelings on this movie. I'm so very curious to see what people's overall perception of this movie is. It's so depressing seeing that it is not doing well financially, but I'm so curious to see where people are kind of landing on this movie. So feel free to let me know down below. That's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos, so thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.